Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Wagner's Tannhäuser, which was live from the Bayerische Staatsoper. The conductor was Kirill Petrenko. The production sets, lights, and costumes were done by Romeo Castellucci. The assistant director was Silvia Costa. The choreographer was Cindy van Acker. The dramaturgy was handled by Pier Sandra Di Matteo and Malte Krasting. The video designer and lighting assistant was Marco Giusti. And the chorus master was Sören Eckhoff. And this also marked the first time Klaus Florian Vogt sang the role of Tannhäuser, and in this particular production of Tannhäuser, they performed the Paris version, in which the Venus aria Geliebter komm is slightly a semitone lower, and we also get to hear a lot more from her character before Tannhäuser leaves for the mortal world. And I will gladly get to the singers later, especially with the likes of Anya Harteros, Elena Pankratova, Georg Zeppenfeld, and Christian Gerhahe in the pivotal roles. But first, my thoughts on the production. Overall, I have to say that there were some pretty interesting things about this type of production, and there were certain things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. What I really liked about this production of Tannhäuser was seeing Venus's legion of Amazon women who pretty much act like her guards for her kingdom, who are armed with bows and arrows, and they're basically shooting at what I presume to be like their version of the moon with a person's eye, as if to state that no intruder and no one who disrespects their mistress will ever enter, or else they will be met with certain death. And I also do like the juxtaposition between the kingdom of Venus versus that of the mortal world, in which, in terms of Venus's kingdom, everything is expressed freely, and you get to see that all your deepest desires come alive. And with the mortal world, it's a lot more composed, a little bit more posh, and it's basically the society where everything seems to be controlled. Now, there's one thing in particular that I am not really a fan of, and that is Venus's design. Now, traditionally, Venus is supposed to be the goddess of love and beauty and passion. Now, what I've seen in this Venus is that she looks like a huge clump of flesh with a lot of nude people just crawling up to her. Her form kind of reminds me of Naraku's unfinished form from Inuyasha, in which Naraku has all of these tentacles and all these different forms of yokai sticking out to him. That's pretty much my interpretation of that particular costume. Now, on top of that, traditionally Venus is supposed to look voluptuous, very sexy, and very much alluring to Tannhäuser's eye. Here, I thought she looked kind of gross, but maybe that's just to say that Venus represents desires in the flesh and how much people want to have a lot of physical, sexual contact with others. So one can say that she's sort of lust in the flesh personified. And when it comes to the mortal world, we see the four other Minnesänger and Landgraf Hermann, and also including Wolfram hunting, and they also smear Tannhäuser's face and clothes with the blood of a hunted stag, which I kind of found a little bit gross. And with Elisabeth's first appearance in terms of her costume, we see that the top part of her costume has like a naked, slim woman on there before she takes it off in the final moments of the second act. And in terms of the third act, I have to say it's one of the best moments ever, because it is the complete opposite of what we see in the second act, where it's quite bright and it looks rather posh. In the third act, it's darkly lit, it's kind of haunting. However, we also see that there are some corpses passing through here and there, as if to state that there are pilgrims who have died in this particular journey, whether it be from exhaustion or insufficient nutrition on their way, which makes this kind of frightening to witness. And going back to the Minnesänger contest in the second act, we see that there is a cube in the center, and there are German words which are basically plastered on there. The first one has something to do with love, which is Liebe, and then comes Anmut, Waffe, and once Tannhäuser sings his love for Venus, then we see that there is like blood being smeared into the cube, as if to state that Tannhäuser's lust is way more overpowering than what is appropriate in the kingdom of Landgraf Hermann and his niece Elisabeth. So overall, I am not really a huge fan of this particular production, even though there were some pretty good moments. I have to say that the third act was the one that stood out to me so much because it was ideally spooky, but at the same time it has that sense of reverence. And it was kind of funny seeing Klaus Florian Vogt's first name and Anya Harteros's first name on the tombstones, which I found rather interesting because it was supposed to be labeled as Tannhäuser and Elisabeth, as they are basically the two characters who transcended the flesh in the very end. Probably it's just to say that it's basically a juxtaposition of their characters. I'm not really too sure. So like I said, not really a huge fan of the production, but there were some pretty interesting moments. And now we get to the singers, starting off with our main anti-hero, Heinrich Tannhäuser, who was sung by Klaus Florian Vogt. First of all, I really love him as a singer. He is quite meticulous in his singing, he is measured, he has great musicianship, and he really knows what exactly he is singing. However, he's not really my ideal voice for roles like this. And whenever I think of someone who would sing this type of role like Tannhäuser, I would always think back to, obviously, Lauritz Melchior. Or if I want a more baritonal voice and emission, I would probably go for someone like Ramon Vinay or even that of John Vickers. Now, in terms of Klaus Florian Vogt, he doesn't really have a baritonal emission, which I really, really love in Heldentenors. His voice is quite light, as I've always been hearing, but nonetheless, I still have to give Herr Vogt a lot of credit for his great musicianship, his understanding of the character, and for singing everything well. Overall, he may not be my ideal voice for Tannhäuser or many other Heldentenor roles, but his commitment as a musician and as an actor and an overall singer is in pure evidence when he sang the role of Heinrich Tannhäuser. Then we go to Venus, who was sung by the Russian dramatic soprano Elena Pankratova. And she was an absolute fine form in this particular role. I really love the dark quality of her voice. I love how homogeneous her timbre is. And she just has a commanding stage presence. Even when she sang off stage in the third act, I could definitely feel that vocal presence. I could feel that strength that she gives to her character, and I could feel that desperation when she knows darn well that she is going to lose Tannhäuser, the one who worshipped her and kind of loved her in a lustful way. And the way she was able to sing and act Venus was really well done. Yes, it's kind of a shame that she had to be in that type of getup, but despite all that, she did a superb job, vocally and dramatically. Then we have Anya Harteros, who sang the role of Elisabeth, and she was lovely in that role. She had a very gorgeous voice, and as always, she had that regal, dignified, elegant, and simply put, beautiful stage presence. She knows how to play up glamour, and she knows how to make Elizabeth a noble, passionate, graceful, and simply put, gorgeous princess. How she was able to embody Elizabeth with the right amount of piety, nobility, and elegance is something that makes her quite strong as a performer. And her rendition of Dich teure Halle was solidly sung, even though there were some notes that were kind of being pushed. But her rendition of Allmächtige Jungfrau, hör mein Flehen was appropriately heavenly, and it was just lovely. I almost felt like I was going to weep because it just touched my heart of how she sang that particular aria. Georg Zeppenfeld was a firm-sounding Landgraf Hermann. Yes, he may not have the uber-dark tones of, let's say, Gottlob Frick, Kurt Böhme, Giulio Neri, Josef Greindl, and many other superb basso profondos of the past, but what he has is a lot of elegance, and he has that tall figure that he plays off of really well. How he manages to play the role of Landgraf Hermann is quite something to witness, as he was able to make him a tall, demanding figure, but also a figure who's quite regal and dignified. And Herr Zeppenfeld is certainly a master when it comes to portraying all of these tall, handsome, regal characters with roles like Zarastro, King Philip II, King Mark, and Gurnemans. I could definitely tell that a gentleman like Herr Zeppenfeld is certainly in his element when singing these regal, tall, and fine roles like Landgraf Hermann. Christian Gerhaher was absolutely touching as Wolfram von Eschenbach. He is just a very gorgeous, stylistic, and simply put, fine singer. His elegance when it comes to his singing is so awe-inspiring and at times heart-wrenching. I really feel for his character, and this is also a gentleman who specializes in the fine art of Lieder. I can definitely tell that a gentleman like Herr Christian Gerhaher puts his great experiences of Lieder to use with this particular character, especially evidenced in the way he managed to make his singing and acting all measured, using the right amount of mezza voce, using a lot of great tones, and he managed to embody the role of Wolfram von Eschenbach with a great amount of dignity, charm, and most importantly, vocal beauty, and also a great amount of theatrical beauty as well. He embodied the role so well that I was completely glued to the screen of how he portrayed this wonderful character. We also have such wonderful singing from Peter Lobert's superb sounding, rough, dark, cavernous, and rich Bitterolf, which sort of makes me wonder why he hasn't sung the role of Landgraf Hermann yet, but I do suppose he's covered that role, and I really want to see him a lot more leading roles because he has a huge and commanding basso profondo voice, and he just has a firm stage presence, and it's a type of voice I would love to hear a lot more often, especially in leading roles. So I have to give a lot of kudos to Herr Peter Lobert for a job well done in terms of personifying this jerk of a character. And he just did a very fine job, and I would love to hear him in a lot more leading men roles. And we also have Ralf Lukas's handsomely sung and superb Reinma von Sveta, Dean Power's sleek and elegant Walter von der Vogelweide, Ulrich Resse's fine and wonderful Heinrich der Schreiber, and of course Elsa Benoit, who sang the role of the young shepherd, though she technically sang the role off stage and was basically played by a young boy actor who had to mouth her words, which I found rather strange because Elsa Benoit is a superb singer and it would have been really cool to see her actually sing and act the role, even though it's kind of short. So overall, the singing was well done, especially when you have such great musicians like Klaus Florian Vogt, Anja Harteros, Christian Gerhaher, Georg Zeppenfeld, and of course Elena Pankratova. But I also felt like it was Christian Gerhaher's and Anja Harteros's shows, as they did superb jobs singing the roles of Wolfram and Elisabeth. And the conducting done by Kirill Petrenko was well done. He made sure that the orchestra stayed in tune, and the chorus and orchestra of the Bayerische Staatsoper were absolutely fabulous. So overall, even though I am not a great fan of this production of Tannhäuser, I have to say that the singers did superbly, and Kirill Petrenko certainly led a fine orchestra. And for those of you who caught this particular production of Wagner's Tannhäuser at the Bayerische Staatsoper, what did you think of it? Did you feel like Klaus Florian Vogt did a fine job in his role debut as Tannhäuser? Did you feel like there was another singer who stole his thunder like Anja Harteros or Christian Gerhaher? Or did you feel like the singing was not really up to par? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later for my review of Rossini's Semiramide, also at the Bayerische Staatsoper. So until then, have a great day, everybody.